the BBC comes out of this pretty badly. What you have is, on one side of the divide, you have the BBC executive, the former Director General Mark Thompson, claiming that whilst there was this ongoing process of redundancy at the BBC, of course, like many other parts of the public sector, there were cuts that needed to be made, and particularly among senior management. It was his contention that, first of all, that they should not have, they needed to get this process to take place very quickly. They didn't want to tinker with what they could and they couldn't give to anyone. And indeed, although that the payments were being made in line with contract, there were times when it exceeded what was contractually obliged. He said that the BBC Trust were fully informed of this. Of course, Chris Patten, when he spoke back in June, said they were not. This is Mark Thompson's response to a direct question from the Public Accounts Committee. Were we misled when Chris Patten spoke to us?
I believe there were damaging and unfair, misleading statements made specifically on this point of how much information had been shared with the chairman at the time, Sir Michael Lyons, with the trust unit led by Nicholas Kroll, with other trustees, and subsequently with the BBC Trust. And I wanted to set that right, as I say, not criticising the individuals, but simply I don't think it's fair, because I believe I made sure that the BBC Trust was fully informed in advance about these settlements.
So you can understand why there was a feeling that there's plenty of acrimony around recrimination, raised voices, accusations of lies, because it all comes down to one simple fact. One person believed in line with contract meant what was contractually obliged, what they were contractually obliged to pay. Mark Thompson felt slightly different to that. And all afternoon we have had a back and forth, a toing and froing between people in the Trust who say, well, we didn't have all the detail at this particular point. The committee asking, why on earth didn't you ask them? What was the detail of, let's take, for example, Mark Byford, the former Deputy Director General of the BBC, one of the more high-profile people to receive redundancy. When you were found out that Margaret Hodge, the chairman, asked that his remuneration package was £1 million, why didn't the Trust then go off and do a bit more digging? They came back and said, well, look, we have very clear responsibilities. We're there to provide value for money and to ensure that there's value for money. However, we're not there to set the individual limits. I mean, certainly for his part, Chris Patten has actually been rather quiet during this session, preferring to leave it to, for example, Marcus Aegis, the man who was in charge of the Remuneration Committee, others like Michael Lyons, the former chairman of the Trust, who was in at the time. When he did speak, he made it clear that he felt that, had he been in post at the time, he wouldn't have known anything about it because, simply put, the previous chap didn't know anything about it.
Let me just come back to the chairman.
Since the previous trust didn't know that payments had been made outside contract, why should I have known as a new trust chairman? Is it really likely that the Director General would say to me, look, the previous trust didn't know that these were paid outside contract or paid in what I define as in contract, though it's not the same as the NAO's view of what a contract is. Is it likely that I would have had briefing which told me that?